You should have never come home, Maya. You sit there limping like a broken ghost while your brother builds a real legacy. You are a complete disgrace to this family. My younger brother Julian's arrogant voice echoed off the high marble ceilings of the grand oak ballroom. Over 90 prominent guests, local politicians, wealthy business owners, civic leaders, and journalists dropped their champagne glasses in shock. Every single camera lens and eye in the room snapped directly toward me. I stood near the entrance in a modest navy dress, leaning lightly on my cane to relieve the dull ache in my left knee. I was Captain Maya Lin, a decorated former Army combat medic and trauma specialist. I had spent 8 years surviving brutal overseas deployments, dodging enemy fire, and saving dozens of lives under extreme conditions, earning a Purple Heart and a Silver Star. I had driven 4 hours straight to attend what my mother claimed was a quiet family dinner, celebrating our family's history. Instead, I'd walked straight into a massive political gala. Julian stood on the elevated stage under bright spotlights, wearing a tailored designer suit next to a huge banner that read, "Julian Lin, founder of Vet Rescue Care and our next state senator." "Julian, please," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the cold lump of pain in my throat. "I came because Mom told me Dad's old military service dog tags were being passed to the family tonight." "Don't bring your pity excuses here," my mother Beatrice shouted, stepping to the front of the stage, her diamond necklace flashing under the chandeliers. "Your father would be ashamed of you. Julian raised $3 million to build medical facilities for wounded veterans. Meanwhile, you hid behind desk duty, lost your health, and came back begging for family money. You are nothing compared to him." Julian stepped up to the microphone, putting on a practiced, solemn expression. "It's okay, Mom," Julian said into the mic, his voice dripping with condescending pity. "Maya has always struggled with jealousy. While I was risking my personal capital to protect our brave veterans, Maya was sitting in air-conditioned offices doing paperwork. We can't all be heroes." A quiet wave of judgment and dismissive murmurs swept through the room. A local news reporter near my table shook his head, whispering to his cameraman, "Imagine being jealous of your own brother's charity work." The humiliation burned through my chest like ice. Overwhelmed by raw betrayal, I turned on my heel, pressed my cane into the carpet, and walked out into the cold night air. The freezing night air hit my face as I leaned against my truck in the dark parking lot, taking deep breaths to steady my racing pulse. Buzz, buzz. My phone vibrated violently in my coat pocket. It was an alert from an encrypted military notification app linked to my medical officer profile. Subject line, "Security Breach Alert, DoD Medical Record Access." My blood ran cold. I tapped the screen with trembling fingers. According to the official Department of Defense alert, someone had accessed my restricted military trauma logs, discharge forms, and combat medical reports 30 minutes ago from an unauthorized civilian IP address located inside the Grand Oak Ballroom. Why would anyone inside my family's gala be downloading my classified combat medical files? Before I could even process the breach, a second notification chimed on my phone. It was an urgent email from my bank. Subject line, "Notice of mortgage foreclosure and legal restraint." I opened the document with cold hands. A legal motion had been filed against my small rehabilitation farm, the property I had bought with my combat pay to treat traumatized service dogs. The filing claimed I was mentally unfit due to combat trauma, and that my estate was being seized to pay back a $250,000 family business loan I allegedly authorized 3 years ago. Attached to the filing was a scanned document bearing my forged signature, assigning my power of attorney directly to my brother Julian.
They hadn't just insulted my service, they were actively using forged legal documents to steal my home and label me mentally unstable to shut me down before I could ever speak out.
A car door slammed nearby. I looked up to see a woman in an elegant evening dress walking quickly through the dark parking lot toward my truck. It was Victoria, Julian's fiancée and the chief financial consultant for his political campaign. She was pale, her hands shaking as she pulled a thick manila envelope from her coat. "Maya, get in your truck and leave right now," Victoria said, her voice tight with panic. I stepped closer, my tactical instincts kicking in. "Did you breach my military medical files?" "No, I didn't breach anything," Victoria whispered desperately. "Julian used your old home laptop 2 days ago to download your files, but 10 minutes ago, a state ethics investigator arrived at the back door of the ballroom with a federal subpoena. Your mother paid the venue managers to block the investigator at the door." I narrowed my eyes. A subpoena for what? "For medical fraud and illegal grant diversion," Victoria revealed, her eyes wide with fear. "Maya, Julian didn't raise $3 million from private donors. He used your stolen military officer identity and combat records to apply for Federal Department of Veterans Affairs grants. He told the state that he was the combat medic who performed those trauma rescues." My heart stopped. He had taken my actual life and death combat rescues, erased my name, and put his name on the government grant applications to steal millions in public funds. "I wondered why you were telling me this, Victoria." I looked at her intensely. "You are marrying him next month." Victoria pulled a flash drive from the envelope, tears welling in her eyes. "Because 15 minutes ago, I heard your mother talking to Julian in the green room," Victoria confessed, her voice trembling with disgust. "Julian told her that if the federal audit comes down hard, they'll tell the prosecutors that you were the one who managed the grant paperwork, and that you suffer from severe operational confusion. They are planning to let you take the fall and go to federal prison so Julian can keep his political campaign alive." A sick wave of nausea hit me. My own mother was willing to let me go to prison to protect my brother's stolen fortune. "Here," Victoria said, shoving the envelope and drive into my hands. "This is the complete server backup, including the original military records they stole, the forged signatures, and the email logs between Julian and his crooked shell companies." I rushed into the cab of my truck, plugged the drive into my military laptop, and opened the files. As the documents loaded onto the screen, the horrifying truth revealed itself. They hadn't just stolen my combat records for grant money. 3 months ago, the Department of the Army had approved a $500,000 specialized medical equipment allocation meant for a new veteran rehabilitation center. The grant was awarded personally to Captain Maya Lin based on my Silver Star citation. My mother had intercepted the official registered mail at her house, my permanent mailing address while deployed. She opened the federal notice, hid the official award, and helped Julian set up a fake nonprofit called Vet Rescue Care. They transferred the entire $500,000 into a private account, using the money to buy Julian's luxury sports car, paying for his political ads, and funding their lavish lifestyle. They didn't just think I was a failure, they had systematically erased my existence, stolen my highest honors, and leached off my combat sacrifices while calling me a parasite to my face. 20 minutes later, the heavy brass doors of the Grand Oak Ballroom slammed open with a loud, resounding thud. The gala was reaching its peak. Julian was standing at the podium under glittering lights, holding a glass of expensive champagne, as 90 wealthy guests applauded. My mother stood beside him, beaming with pride. I walked straight down the carpeted center aisle. I was no longer wearing my simple dress. I was wearing my dark blue Army service uniform, my captain rank gleaming on my shoulders, my silver star and purple heart medals pinned sharply over my heart, and my combat medic badges shining under the chandeliers.
The room went dead silent. "Maya?" Beatrice hissed, her face turning bright red with rage as she stepped to the edge of the stage. "How dare you come back in here dressed up like that to humiliate us? Security, remove this crazy woman." Two large security guards stepped toward me, but I pulled out my official military credentials and held them high. I am an active duty military officer conducting an official audit of stolen federal property. Interfering with a federal officer is a felony. The guards stopped dead in their tracks. The guests began whispering frantically. Julian smirked into the microphone, trying to laugh it off. "Maya, please stop this ridiculous performance. We all know you're upset about your career, but this event is for people who actually served our country." "You're right, Julian," I said calmly, stepping up to the floor microphone. Before my mother could scream, Victoria stepped over to the side media booth and plugged the flash drive directly into the ballroom's main projector system. The campaign banner on the giant digital screens vanished. In its place flashed side-by-side high-resolution documents, my official Army Silver Star citation detailing my combat medical rescues overseas, next to Julian's forged grant applications, where he had literally copied my deployment dates and pasted his own name over mine. The whole room gasped in horror. Over the past 2 years, Vet Rescue Care collected $3 million in state and federal grants. My brother Julian never served a day in uniform. He was medically disqualified at 18. Every single medical rescue, every combat report, and every award used to secure those funds belonged to me. "She's lying. She's mentally unstable," Beatrice shrieked, rushing to the edge of the stage, her voice dropping all polish and turning hysterical. "Turn off those screens right now." "Is this lying, Mom?" I tapped my laptop screen. Audio boomed through the ballroom speakers, a crystal-clear recording of my mother talking to Julian in the green room 30 minutes ago. If the federal auditors ask about the missing $500,000, we tell them Maya handled the paperwork. She has PTSD anyway. Nobody will believe a broken veteran over a candidate for state senate. The silence in the room was absolute and terrifying. Donors dropped their glasses. Local politicians backed away in utter disgust. The news reporters immediately pointed their cameras at the stage, flashes lighting up the room like lightning. Julian's face went ghost white. He backed away from the podium, his hands shaking so violently he dropped his champagne glass, shattering it across the stage floor. Suddenly, an elderly man sitting in the front row, wearing a formal dark suit with a small lapel pin, stood up. It was General Thomas Vance, a retired 4-star Army general and one of the most respected military figures in the state, whom my brother had personally invited to endorse his campaign. General Vance stepped forward, his eyes blazing with fierce, cold fury as he looked up at Julian and my mother. "You absolute disgraced cowards. You stole from a wounded combat medic? You stole from a Silver Star recipient who bled for this country?" General Vance turned toward the back of the hall and raised his hand. "Agents, step forward." 2 federal investigators from the Department of Veterans Affairs Criminal Investigative Service, accompanied by 3 state troopers, walked briskly down the center aisle. My mother stumbled backward against the wall. "No, wait, you don't understand. This is a family matter." Stealing federal defense funds and forging military documents is not a family matter. It is a federal crime. The state troopers stepped onto the stage, pulling Julian's and Beatrice's hands behind their backs. The sharp, metallic click, click of handcuffs echoed clearly across the silent ballroom.
The collapse of my family's corrupt empire was immediate and total. As the troopers led Julian and my mother down the center aisle in handcuffs, all 90 guests watched in complete revulsion. Not a single person stepped forward to help them. The very journalists my brother had invited snapped dozens of photos of their public arrest. Julian was crying hysterical tears, hiding his face from the cameras, while my mother screamed curses, looking pathetic, broken, and completely ruined. General Vance walked up to me, removed his hat, and offered a crisp, flawless, and deeply respectful salute. "General Lin," General Vance said, his voice filled with pride. "On behalf of every true veteran in this country, I salute your courage. Your home is safe, your honors are restored, and these criminals will face the full weight of federal justice." I stood tall, brought my hand to my brow, and returned the salute with pure, quiet dignity. "Thank you, General." An hour later, as the police cruisers pulled away into the night, I stood outside on the balcony of the estate, looking out at the quiet sky. Victoria walked out beside me, wrapping her coat tight around her shoulders. "Are you going to be okay, Maya?" she asked softly. I looked down at the silver star pinned to my uniform, feeling the cool night breeze against my skin. For years, I had carried the burden of my family's rejection, believing that if I sacrificed enough, they would finally love me. A single tear escaped my eye, not of pain, but of pure, liberating peace. I'm better than okay. I'm finally free. You cannot fix toxic, greedy family members by sacrificing your own dignity to protect their secrets. For years, I let my family belittle me, believing that keeping quiet and enduring their cruelty was my duty. I thought my silence would keep the peace. But toxic people do not respect your humility. They see your grace as a weakness to be exploited. They will happily steal your honor, ruin your life, and throw you to the wolves just to satisfy their own greed. True strength isn't about quietly enduring abuse from people who share your blood. True strength is standing firm in your truth, defending your hard-earned honor, drawing an unbreakable line in the sand, and letting justice speak for you.